Welcome everyone. Kartik ji, namaste. This is my attempt to present you in English to the audience who might listen to this session. My name is Ivan Kabanov. I am Russian jyotishi, if you may say so. I studied jyotish like 10 years or even more. And we have a jyotish school named Jataka, and many of our students wanted to see this session. You know, Kartik, we have scheduled in our school. We had scheduled lessons at this time, and when they saw that we have another session with you, they said, oh, can we reschedule our regular classes so we can attend this YouTube stream with Kartik? So we had to change regular classes in our school because of this event. So Kartik Srinivasan is a certified astrologer. In my personal opinion, like perspective, I think Kartik brings a scientific approach to this ancient art of Vedic astrology. I had an opportunity to have a session with you, Kartik, last year when we talked on Upapada, and your deep understanding in techniques and philosophical foundation is just astonishing. And whoever wants to listen to this great topic on relationships and on Upapada, you can check on our channel in Russian language, and on the Kartik's channel if you want to listen in with English audio. So let's dive into the sports this time. And words to you. It's up to you, Kartik.
Thank you so much. And so kind of you to take time out from the session and make that sacrifice of the scheduling with your students. And I really appreciate that a lot. I didn't realize about it, but it's really really grateful for that. And I think I seem to be saving my best for you. So it is worth the sacrifice, probably, I guess. Because I mean, the lecture on Upada which I gave was probably someone which I had researched quite a lot and spent a lot of time. And this, I would say, it goes a little bit further, as I will explain later, because it's a bit of my own personal thinking as well in this. Okay, other than what I learned from my gurus. So we can start off. I'll just say our what we always say, our Guru Mantra. I'll just say it 5 times, and then we can start off with the presentation. And we have a long way to go, so a lot of things to present. Om Gurave Namah. 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 So, as the title says, the entire presentation is about sports and how can we understand sports career through Jyotish? So, the key question which we are trying to answer is what makes a sports person? What combinations in a chart will clearly indicate this person would have a sports career?
Mhm.
So, as the title says, I am Kartik Srinivasan, and these are my gurus, Shri Vistilasan and Srimati Sarbani Rath. I'm very grateful for all the knowledge, whatever I have got is from them and Pandit Sanjay Rath. So, before going to the next slide, what I wanted to say is one important point that when we one is I have a fascination for career astrology. I wanted to understand career because I consider career is one of the most objective things about a person.
Mhm.
See the psychology of a person, how a person is in a relationship, etc., etc. How rich a person is also, or how poor a person is, what is his status. There can be different views of thoughts. Okay, for a
Mhm.
poor person, I may be a rich guy. For nothing, right? But the career of a person, say someone is a doctor, he's a doctor for everyone. Okay, what
Mhm.
kind of doctor he is, what kind of particular specialty practices, that may be different. But he's a doctor for everyone. And that makes it a very objective field. And also, it is a very important field. That is the other
Mhm.
aspect of it. Because career or profession is an important part of our karma. So, when we talk of sports, uh, let's first up understand. I mean, there are different opinions of what planets are linking to sports. Okay. But I will first talk about Buddha or Mercury. Okay. And I'll explain to you what are the specific references which clearly indicate that Buddha is a planet very, very closely linked to sports. I'm not talking of sports career right now, but definitely about sports, about playing.
And this is why you asked to make the presentation more greenish, right? Because of the
Yeah.
Mercury.
So, one reference, the first reference that you find, and many of them are from Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra, the book you have behind you. In fact, I think it is in that same volume one. Okay, maybe you
Mhm.
can just take it and refer to it also. The reference I have given in the later slide. So, one of the first references is uh, it talks about the places associated with different planets. Okay, so in that, you have, for example, temple is associated with sun, Devalaya. Okay, Jalam or water is associated with moon. And in that, Krida means playground. Or in this, Krida means sports, but Krida in this context means playground. Okay, so the playground is associated with Mercury. And then we have another reference later on, which is this is talking about the planetary cabinet, where like Sun is the king, Moon is the queen, and so on and so forth. In that, Mercury is called as Rajakumara, which means a prince, a crown prince.
Mhm.
Okay. So again, when we talk of a crown prince, we're talking of a young boy or a young adult or a young girl for that matter. And then we have something called Naisargika Dasha, okay, which is a kind of a natural kind of period. Everyone has the same Naisargika Dasha, okay, in that each of the planets governs certain period in one's life, okay. So when we were born, it is Moon, then comes Mars, and then when we are between 4 to 12 years of age, it is governed by Mercury, right? So again, this is the age when we are actually playing the most. You go back to your childhood. As a child, this is the time when you go out, make playmates, find kids to play out with, and your entire time, your consciousness is full of playing. I mean, imagine, you come back from school, we would be throwing our school bags and then going to the playground and playing till 2, 3 hours or whatever, and then come only back by sunset or something like that, right? So, and we'll be completely immersed in playing. That is this age we are talking about.
I remember this time. You don't want to go home. Your mother is just like, okay, let's
You
go
go home
home.
only because you have a father and he will, like, 6 o'clock, you have to be at home. So that is the reason. So you get a picture that you have uh, you're talking of a young child completely involved in playing and enjoying playing. This aspect of sports is about enjoying playing. And even today when we talk of great sports persons, many times you'll often hear them say, I want to go out and enjoy the game,
Mhm.
right? Not take it as a competition, but enjoying the game. That will bring the best out of me, right? Why do they
Not,
say that? Because that is coming back to their childhood, what got them into the game, really,
mhm.
Now, when we talk about Mercury, we have two signs of it, which it owns, right? We have Gemini and we have Virgo, right?
Mhm.
Now, the Gemini happens to be the natural third house. When we talk of Kala Purusha, the natural signs, where Aries is first house, Taurus second house, Gemini is the third house, and Virgo is the sixth house. Okay. Now, there is a difference between Gemini and Virgo. Gemini is what is known as a Swakshetra or own sign of Mercury, while Virgo is what is known as Mula Trikona, or the what we call Mula Trikona is basically its work sign, you may say, office sign. It
Mhm.
is what it is at work. So that there is that difference between them. So it's obvious that when we are talking of a child going out and playing with his friends, friends are like brothers, so that is like third house. Go out and it's just having a good time, right? That's with people whom you enjoy being with, and also you're playing with them. While when we are talking of sixth house is a sign of enemy, competition, fighting, right? So there you're talking about Mercury that play. If you're talking of playing, we are talking in a different context. We are talking of where it is a kind of a war, where it is kind of a competition. And where do we find that? I mean, sports career is all about competition. There is no
Mhm.
sports career without competition. So if
Mhm.
you're playing and if you're talking of playing for your work, you're essentially talking of competition, and that is sixth house. With this as an important kind of uh, segue or a movement forward, we can understand that when we are talking of sports career, we're talking of Mercury and sixth house. And hence, then we can go to the next slide,
Mhm.
and I'll be able to talk further on that. So when we talk of the sixth house now, we find that some other planets also get involved, right? And for the sixth house, the primary Karaka is like you may say an overarching entity related to that house. It is the blessing of God or the hand of God for that house. That Karaka, or what we call significator. What planet signifies that house? And that is Mars. Okay, Maharishi Parashar is very clear about it. And the Devata for Mars, for each planet there is a Devata. Maharishi Parashara gives that as well. Okay, so for Mars it is Skanda or Kartikeya. Okay, and Kartikeya is the commander in chief of the army of the gods or the Devatas. Hence, is called Deva Senapati. Senapati means commander in chief. Of whom? Of the devatas, of the deities, against the asuras or against the demons. Okay, so when he was born itself, it was entirely about annihilating the enemies, that is asuras. So it was about battle, right? It was about battle, and it is about pushing forward, that adventure, motivation, that kind of concepts we come about when we talk about Mars. And there are so many aspects of Lord Kartikeya which is associated with the number six. Okay. He was born, I mean, his mothers were considered the Kritikas, okay, who were six sisters. I mean, they were supposed to be the wives of the Saptarishis, the great rishis, okay. It is from their name, that is Kritika, the name Kartikeya came. Because he is the son of Kritikas or considered a son of Kritikas, is why he is called Kartikeya. Apart from that, because of that reason, he had six heads. Okay, because he had to satisfy each of the six mothers. They wanted to give him milk, right?
Mhm.
And hence it's called Shanmukha, means having six heads. And
Mhm.
not just that, the sixth Tithi or Shashti is very closely associated with him. In fact, what we call Skanda Shashti, that is the day when we sort of worship Lord Kartikeya, is just 3-4 days from now. Today is Tritiya,
Mhm.
interestingly, also a Tithi for Mars. And 4 days later is Skanda Shashti. So, this Shashti is also supposed to be the name of Devasena. Okay. Now, Devasena is, at some people think of it as a symbol of the armies of Deva. Okay, but it's also, I mean, in Mahabharata, it's quite clearly given that Devasena is also a lady. Okay, a particular person who was daughter of Prajapati and a sister of Indra, cousin sister of Indra rather, and whom Indra gave in marriage. to Lord Kartikeya. And she is also known as Shashti. So, and it is, I think they were married on the Tithi of Shashti. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there is this lot of association of Devasena or the armies of commander-in-chief of the Devatas this, with the sixth Tithi and with Kartikeya. So you can see a lot of this connection.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see there are a lot of association with the number six with Lord Kartikeya. And when we talk of the Rashi, that is Virgo, Virgo is actually called Kanya Rashi in Sanskrit. And Kanya means unmarried lady. Okay. It basically indicates bachelorhood, it indicates an innocence or a purity. Okay. And Kartikeya is also known as Kumara. Kumara indicates also a bachelor, someone who is not married, a young boy, and most of his exploits as a were happened as a child. He was born, and immediately he accomplished great things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it is as a child he did that. So hence the word Kumara is very strongly associated. Kumara is also a young what you call a bachelor adult. Okay, which
Mm-hmm.
also indicates the natural sixth house. See, sixth house is also about bachelorhood, right? It is about not marrying or that kind of thing. So that is very strongly associated with Virgo Rashi as well. And Virgo, while it is having Mercury as its lord, in our parampara, we also consider Rahu as co-lording Virgo. In fact, it is supposed to be the Mula Trikona of Rahu also. Okay. Interestingly, it is the office space of Rahu also. Okay. So both Mercury and Rahu consider it as their work area. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't ignore Rahu. And let me just add this point also. When we talk of sports, we are always talking about two sides or two individuals fighting against each other, right? You may have Federer versus Nadal, or you may have India versus Pakistan, or anything else, or USA versus USSR in the past. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so that is like either I am Devata and the opposition is Asura, that kind of thing. So it's like always a Mars Rahu battle going on. Okay, so that's where you have Rahu also involved in this kind of fight. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
each of these planets have different things which they are bringing in. I'll add to that later. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So and by the way, while Mars is considered as Deva Senapati, that is the commander in chief of the Deva armies, Rahu is considered as the Asura Senapati, who is commanding the Asura armies. So that aspect is also there. So in summary, when we are seeing it's not just one planet. Okay. Like when we started off, uh, when thinking about these things, so like you typically associate Mars with professional sports. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But my thinking on this, after looking a lot of different charts, is that it's not just Mars. Mars is definitely important, but it is about these other planets also coming in, like Mercury and Rahu, the sign Virgo having some importance, and even the sixth house having importance, right? So when you see you may say what you call conglomeration or coming together of
Yeah.
all these different things in a horoscope together, there's some strong links between them, some yogas between Mars and Mercury or Mars and Virgo, etc. And there's also linking to sixth house. That is where you find that sports career comes into prominence. There's one other dictum which comes from the Karakamsha chapter of Parashara, which says that malefic planet or malefic sign or malefic influences on the third house from Karakamsha. Karakamsha, we'll be talking this term again and again in the next few slides. Karakamsha is the sign of the Atmakaraka in the Navamsha. Okay. So from there, the third sign, third house having malefic influence, that makes a person very brave. Okay. Ability to have the person has a lot of courage and ability to go through a lot of difficult situations. Okay, without
Mm-hmm.
flinching. So that comes from this thing. So that is one of the important things for sports also. I would say also Karakamsha sixth house. There's a kind of link third house and sixth house also. So, but definitely I've seen third house Karakamsha having malefic influence.
Mm-hmm.
In so I talked about Lord Kartikeya in the context of Mars, okay? But one question would emerge, okay, how is he associated with Mercury really? Because Mercury is the planet which I started off with, right? With related to sports and all that. And how is he really, okay, you may say Kartikeya is for battle and, fighting against the Asuras and he's about courage and all that. But how is he related to sports, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's where I have a few more references in the next slide.
Mm-hmm.
So, Om Skandaya Namah, this mantra for Lord Kartikeya. And we have, the origin story or the birth story of Lord Kartikeya is one of the most complex. And you have different versions in different Puranas and Mahabharata, etc. Uh, but we need not get into that. It will take a long time. But he was born like as a baby just out of nowhere kind of thing. He was literally supposed to be born in a remote mountain amongst the reeds and all that. And as soon as he was born, he did great feats. I mean, there are things like it says in Vanaparva of Mahabharata. It says Chikrida cha Mahabhuja. So what he did was he took two elephants and a big rooster and he started playing with them. Okay. So that is so Krida. Note the word Krida over here, which we are talking about with related
Mm-hmm.
to
Clear
sport.
playground. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not just playground, it's about sports itself, playing,
Mm-hmm.
the act of playing
Playing.
also.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is like Tvam Kridase Shanmukha Kukutena. Oh Shanmukha, you play with the rooster. So, one of the emblems of Lord Kartikeya is the rooster or the cock. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
His Vahana or this vehicle is a peacock. You can see the kind of an outline of a peacock over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his weapon, his key weapon is called Shakti, which is a spear. Okay. So, this is another thing. Kridase, as you can see, again, you're playing with a rooster. Then he's called Bala Kridanaka Priya. Kridanaka means toys. Okay, so one who loves toys and children's toys and activities associated with sports, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And not just that, when he was born and people heard he was doing great feats and a great boy has been born, a lot of gods came to him. First, in fact, Indra and the Devas, they were threatened. They saw who is this person? He may attack us and all that. So they attacked him, but they got defeated. Indra got defeated, and then they submitted to him. You are our overlord and all that. And then what did they do? They brought him a lot of toys and articles. You're coming to, so it's like a baby, the boy, and they bring him a lot of toys and articles so that the boy is amused and is happy. Okay, and he was given with lots of toys and different birds, and it was Garuda who gave him a peacock, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So like that, each person gave different things. So it was toys they gave him because they considered him as a child, but a strong child, definitely. Yeah, yeah. So he loved to play. That is very clear. So here what I try to do is there are various names given to him. So in Mahabharata, there's a chapter where he's praised with a lot of names. Okay. And elsewhere also different names are given. So I try to classify them, okay, and or relate them to different planets, which we are talking about. Okay. So he's supposed to be very beautiful and handsome. Okay. And beauty literally comes from the Prithvi Tattva, which is ruled by Mercury. Okay. And he's called Kanta or Shubhanana, that is handsome, someone beautiful like moon and all that. And he had a natural charm to him, which a child has, like easily attracting everyone. So he was loved by many, he was favorite of many. So these were, and then Deepta Varna, which means a bright complexion, like what we call in Tejas in Sanskrit, like there's a shine to him. So a very beautiful form that we clearly associate with Buddha, apart from what we talked about, the sports, playing, etc.
Mm-hmm. So we are talking about skanda now and different aspects, right? Like
Aspects
how
of,
grahas having the names that he has.
yeah. All the names he
They
has
describe
belong
they
to different
describe this.
grahas.
They
What we
describe this
normally
quality.
understand about these various grahas, like we know what is Buddha, we know what is Mangala, and how some of his names are directly relating to different
Mm-hmm.
grahas. In fact, Gurudev Pandit Sanjay Rath always gives this description of Buddha, which is a shloka from, I think, Vedavyasa. Priyangu Kalika Shyamam, Rupena Apratimam Buddham. Priyangu meaning beautiful limbs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Uh, Rupena Apratimam, whose looks are unparalleled. Okay, no one incomparable. So that is what we talk about Buddha, and the same applies to Lord Kartikeya as well. And now, if we come to Mars or Mangala, we find, I mean, there he's called Shura or courageous. He's called Neta. Neta is literally a name which Parashar also gives to Mars. Okay, Rudra or the terrible one. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Amogha is unfailing in the sense that if he throws his spear, it is unfailing. It will definitely
Mm-hmm.
kill the other person. Okay, and
Reach,
Deepta
reach,
Shakti is
reach
also
the
a reference
target.
to his spear.
It will
Uh,
reach the target. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And with Rahu, I'm not saying that he is Rahu or anything like that, but some of his aspects, okay, like he's called Kuta Mona, which means someone who charms even those who are deceitful, who are scheming people. Okay, that is one. And then when he was born, a lot of people became his followers. Many matrikas, pishachas, etc., came and became his followers. And many of them are associated with troubling young children.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he told them, yes, you can, but only up to, say, the 16th year of age. Beyond that, you should not trouble children. So he is the person who controls. So if they torment, you go and pray to Skanda.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If they torment the child, you go and pray to Skanda for that. So that
Mm-hmm.
way, in a way, because of these aspects of his, I would say there is something related to Rahu as well. In fact, now I remember in Mahabharata, in the description between when he was born and then when they led the armies to defeat the Danavas or the Asuras, uh, there's specific mention that after the Asuras were defeated, the followers of Kartikeya, okay, I think they were called either Guhyakas or Pishachas. I don't exactly remember the term. They went and ate up all the Danavas, all the Asuras.
Mm-hmm.
They ate it. So eating up, eating some like non-veg kind of thing, you may say, is definitely a Rahu thing. Eating meat
Mm-hmm.
is something enjoyed by Rahu. And then there are references directly linking to Kanya itself. For example, it's called Kanya Bhartri or protector of virgins. Okay. Or you may say Lord also of virgins, who is sort of uh, Bhartara is also a word for husbands, by the way, but in the sense that who protects them, who takes care of them. Then he has words like Shuchi, clean, Pavitra, pure. See, the sign Kanya is associated with perfection, purity, a virgin who is unsullied in any way, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and Anaga, sinless.
Yes.
Because sixth house is this house of sin, it tests our sinlessness. Okay.
Yes.
So if a malefic is there, it can cause sin. If a benefic is there, it will make you pure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And here finally the word Shashti Priya is also there, which is like loved by Shashti, which is also, as I said earlier, a name of Devasena, who's considered as wife of
Mm-hmm.
Lord. So here we have a picture of Lord Kartikeya, with 6 heads and 12 arms.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and with various kinds of weapons in different hands of his. And when I thought in these terms, I also thought about the fact that when we talk of sports persons, you have, not every sports person is the same. You know the terms of their individual for the personal level, but in terms of how they are playing, how they are competing, right? For example, how a Djokovic is different, say, from I don't know, say Zverev or Nadal for that matter. There is different approaches they have. Okay, being an Indian, I know very well about cricket. We have say someone like Rohit Sharma supposed to be more laid back and like enjoying the game, keeping, people have goal is more aggressive. Okay. So when we talk of these various kinds of approaches to sports or how they play, I was trying to think of how they can relate with these different planets and whether we can look at the charts and say, this person has this psychological makeup. It's a very subjective thing, but this can be useful for, say, in future to an astrologer if he's looking at a chart of a sports person and like understanding what is the innate kind of nature or innate natural way of competing. And hence, I in the next slide, I have a few kind of associations of a sports person with different kinds of psychological profiles. So we have, for example, Mercury, which we associate with playfulness, a childlike enjoyment of the activity itself, of playing itself. Okay. While on the other hand, one important thing about Mercury is it's a very good student. So very quick to learn, someone who is very skillful, who can quickly understand a skill, how to, let's say, if in football about dribbling a ball or say hitting a penalty corner, etc. Someone who is very good at various skills. Okay. And at the same time, someone who is very smart and objective, doesn't get blown by emotions, isn't prone to anger. You, you you can think of certain uh, sports persons as what they call cool customer, who keeps his cool in the midst of all uh, the passions going around and all that. In Dhoni of a cricket team was very cool, really. And he would, it's not just about bearing pressure, but it's about you being unemotionless, unemotional, emotionless, without any emotion, focusing on the objective alone. Yeah, that is Mercury. This also comes, this difference amongst various grahas is coming from the what we call guna. There is something called guna we have, which is like a quality. There are three kinds of broad qualities. Okay, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Where rajas is about outgoing, pleasure seeking, that kind of. While tamas is in the context of sports, especially, is more about anger and violence and that kind of thing. So so when we talk of Mangala, we are talking of it's a tamas graha. So we are talking about someone who is wanting to make the other person suffer. Okay. Rahu is also tamas graha, but the way it wants to make the other person suffer is different. Because Mangala is a Kshatriya Varna. Kshatriya meaning, sorry, I'm taking a lot of things right now and you may have to translate more, but I'm in a flow. So when we talk of Kshatriya, we have four different what you call Varnas, okay, or mental coloring in a person. Okay. This is different from quality. This is about mental coloring that predisposes a person to different kinds of activities. Okay. So someone who is a Brahmana is more prone to studying, researching. Someone who is Kshatriya is more prone to ruling. Okay. For dominance, who wants dominance on something. Okay. So Mangala, you should think like a tamas, one who wants to make others suffer, at the same time, one who wants to dominate. And hence you have all this, then all these other things make sense, right? He's aggressive, he's competitive, he's very vengeful. In the sense, you do something, you hit him, he wants to hit you back 10 times harder, right? That revenge mentality is very strong. So that is Mangala. Yeah. And another thing about Mangala is Mangal rules what you call our nerves, our the strength of our nerves. Okay, so someone who is able to bear a lot of pressure because the nerves are determinant of how much pressure one can bear. Okay, so there are people. For example, I have the chart later of Djokovic, but I've seen not seen many matches of his, but I've seen quite a few matches of his. He's two sets down in a semi-final or a final, right? And then the next three sets he would win. That takes a lot of ability to bear pressure, right? So someone who's not tired after two sets, and then he tires out the opposition, right? It's like you took two sets out of me, I will show you now. So that kind of attitude is there, right? That is Mars. And when we come to Rahu is a point. It doesn't have a body. Okay. So it has a brains, it has head. Okay. So he can think. But he's more of using the brain over the brawn. So hence it's more about tactics and planning and playing mind games on the opposition. It's also wanting to make the opposition suffer, but he can't use brute force like Mars
Mhm.
can do. Okay,
Mhm.
so he has to use his brains. So it's about what kind of strategy will you use? How can you outthink them? Okay, use whatever resources. You know the opposition is stronger, but what weaknesses you can find in them, which you can
Mhm.
exploit. That is
Mhm.
Rahu's way. And
Mhm.
Rahu in the scheme of the Varnas is considered as an outcast. It's called Chandala.
Mhm.
Is not in the part of the caste scheme at all. So it is someone you may say who, when we talk of out of the, so he will always try to think out of the box. Okay, he
Mhm.
will try to see how can I circumvent the rules. The rules are not in my favor. How can I circumvent the rules? Okay, so hence you may say on the borderline of cheating kind of thing.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
so, but it's not necessarily, I'm not saying everyone who is ruled by Rahu will be a cheat, but there is that, they will always try to blur the borders.
Mhm. Mhm.
And sometimes the governing mechanism has to put rules in place because these guys are using some rules to their advantage, kind of thing.
Mhm.
So, one thing I wanted to say, the Vaishya aspect. Vaishya means a business person, right? Someone who is more interested in acquiring wealth. They are greedy, you may say, right? So, say someone who is more interested in scoring more goals or scoring more points, say in tennis, or that kind of approach. It's more about trying to get more of something. It's not necessarily that I want to make the opposition suffer, right?
Mhm.
I'm more focused on my goals. Okay, that kind of approach is there. Okay,
Mhm. И
this makes a
немножко
slight difference in the way they approach. Like you can see the difference between Mangala and Buddha in this, right? By the way, these numbers given here are basically references for a reference slide I've given at the later
Mhm.
slide. So just in case someone is curious what all of this is. So till now we have been talking about what are the planets which are linking to sports or sports career, right? But there are very, very clear guidelines of how we look at career itself in general, not just sports, any career in a horoscope. Okay. And many of you may know these things. Like, we see the 10th house is very strongly associated with career, right? And we see 10th house from Lagna, 10th house from Chandra, from Sun, etc. The Arudha Lagna is very important because Arudha Lagna is about the image you have and say for a sports person, say someone is a footballer, someone is a tennis player, the sports is their image. And then we have what we call the Charakarakas like Atma Karaka and Amatya Karaka. They are also important because that is more about what is the soul's drive. Okay, what is coming from deep within with regards to one's life. Okay, and Amatya specifically relates to one's key karma outside, which is about work primarily. And Atmakarka is definitely important for anything related to that individual. And sports, sorry, not sports, career is a very important aspect of a person's life. And then we have sometimes key Raja Yogas in a chart. Okay, Raja Yogas, there is a specific definition of Raja Yoga, what constitutes that. So these are, you may say, important combinations of different planets who rule different houses in a chart. And that drives a lot about the horoscope itself, about the life of the person.
Mhm.
Okay. So when in a chart, one has to remember when there is a yoga, when two or three or more planets join, then their weightage increases. It's like more of them are driving you towards a certain direction. If they own certain important houses, that becomes all the more important. Yeah. And then there's importance of the Navamsha and the Dashamsha, right? What we call the D9 and the D10. And the Navamsha is important because it is kind of what we consider uh, influences coming from our past life and hence which guide our destiny. Okay. And then Dashamsha is specifically the circumstances in one's work. Okay. So it gives more specific answers on that.
Mhm.
Though obviously you want to see those yogas in the Rashi as well as Namamsha. So what am I trying to say in summary? Okay, because this is the last slide I have on the theory part, and we've taken a lot of time on that. The key part which I'm trying to say here is that when we talk of sports career, okay, on one hand, you have these factors which govern career in general, okay. And then in the previous so many slides, I talked about those planets and signs and houses which indicate sports particularly, right? So when you find the two, both of them coming together, in the sense, some of this linking to this in some way, in a very strong manner, there are Raj Yogas which are involving some of these planets, or in some way linking to these planets, right? When these two come together, that's where you find a sports carrier, right? Yeah, you can translate this. Now here I just wanted to make a important clarification that there is certain aspect which I have learned from my parampara, from my gurus, okay, and there's something which I am sort of, you may say, venturing out on my own over here, okay. And in full disclosure, I've never done this before, okay. I've been very, very tied to whatever my gurus have said. But here I'm venturing out a little bit on my own. So what I'm venturing out is so my gurus, when we talk of sports career, they say Mars, and yeah, you will look at all these things. Okay. I'm adding these things over here about Mercury, Rahu, Virgo, and sixth house, etc. And I have logically tried to show to you in the previous few slides why I think they are important. Okay. And I have seen that in so many charts. And in fact, believe me, this emerged empirically. I happened to see charts of a lot of sports people, and this came out so clearly to me that I had to see that yes, there must be something very clearly over here, right? So here I am venturing out on my own, but I am not a rishi. I am just Kartik Srinivasan. I am fallible. I can go wrong. Okay. So make it to test it out in charts and see whether this works or not. I'll be presenting quite a few charts to you today and see whether it works out or not. Okay. But this is something which I feel very strongly. There's one is the empirical proof of having seen so many charts. And then there's somewhere an innate confidence coming from deep within that, yes, this is correct. Okay, so this is one clarification I wanted to make before we go ahead. I'll just add to this one more thing is, so when we talk of, say, Mars and career, okay, one can say Mars is someone in defense, military, right? One can say Mars is an engineer, Agni, right? And then you say Mars could also be a competitive sports person, right? Uh, Mars could also be a cook, by the way, someone who is whose career is a cook. You have career chefs for that matter, celebrity chefs, etc. So how do we distinguish in a chart that Mars is indicating this? So it cannot be just Mars alone. Mars is important, but it cannot be Mars just alone. And that is where this is something I'm trying to bring over here is for different careers. For sports career, I could definitely see there is this combination working that Mars with these planets and with these house associations is and with all these career markers coming together, right, is giving a sports career, right? And there's just one more analogy I'll say is whenever we talk of a particular tendency, not just about career, but anything in our life, okay, any particular habit or tendency or a profession or anything like that, okay, it is coming together of multiple influences, right? It is like streams flowing into a river or river flowing into a sea. Many things going in one direction is creating a flow in one direction. Okay. If you drop one grain of, say, red colored sand on the ground, you may not see red. Okay. But as you keep on dropping more red colored sand on the ground, you will see that red color coming out. And soon you will have a red heap over there and you will not miss the red color. So it is coming together of many influences. And that is how I'm thinking about or my approach is over here with regards to looking at sports career or in general. I mean, I've figured out, I think, regarding sports career. But let's say tomorrow, if someone asks me what would make a doctor, what would make a writer, I would want to go in this approach and see it's not just one planet. What are the multiple planets or houses coming together and then giving a key Raja Yoga or something, indicating a particular profession? That is the approach I'm trying to put forward over here.